Canberra rents remain strong. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. I have my stein of afternoon coffee, and I thought we'd have a look at this article from Domain, which is discussing, well, the rents in Canberra. We saw in a recent video that Melbourne apartment rents dropped for the first time since 2011. And, well, Canberra is remaining strong, but growth has stalled after 5 years. So apartment rent growth has stalled after 5 years. So let's jump over to the property data room just to get a bit of an understanding of the market in Canberra. So we can go the median residential house value, and in Canberra it's $685,000, higher than the weighted average, lower than Melbourne and Sydney, but higher than all of the other capital cities in Australia. We look at the median residential unit value. Canberra is, well, below Sydney and Melbourne, $438,000. We have a look at the house rents. Canberra is number one in the country at $580. This data is all from the 31st of March. Even higher than Sydney, even higher than Darwin, which is right up there. Always surprises me. And Hobart. Hobart's gotten real expensive. You know, last time I was down in Tasmania was for a student conference, and I worked for a firm. You know, their Queensland office of a Tasmanian firm. So I'd fly down to Lottie and Hobart. I remember being jealous at how cheap the houses were down there. Sadly, it looks like it's not happening anymore. The median residential unit rent is at Canberra, number 2 at $480. We can see Melbourne here has dropped down to about $415, based on the other data that's come out. So, one more thing I'll bring up. We'll just jump over here. We'll go back to the data room. We'll have a look at commercial properties. And anyone can access this. Just if you want to look at this website and have a look at the data, just type in Property Council Data Room, and it's freely available online. We'll look at offices. We'll look at offices when it loads up. And there's a vacancy rate chart, office vacancy. We can see here, look at this jump. This is the last recession. Now if we jump to Canberra, let's go Sydney. You can see there, it went from under 5% to over 20% at the last recession. Melbourne, same thing. Canberra, nowhere near as much. Nowhere near as dramatic. So, it could be that, you know, the economy of this city is going to have some advantages to other capital cities. It may still cop a hit, but because of the, being the capital city of our nation and having the links to government, there could be some benefits there and some resilience. You know, despite Canberra rental prices sliding over the last quarter, the capital has continued to lead the nation as the most expensive capital city to rent a house, while unit rental prices stalled for the first time in 5 years after continued annual growth, new figures show. According to the Domain rent report for the June 2020 quarter, Canberra houses had a median asking rent of $575 per week, a 0.9% fall from the previous quarter, but a 4.5% increase from the same period a year ago, the biggest spike in the nation. Meanwhile, the median asking rent for units remained the second highest of all capital cities, after Sydney at $470 a week, falling 2.1% from the previous quarter, but remaining unchanged from the prior year. So there you go. Canberra is still pretty bloody strong. Pretty strong rental market. So Canberra unit prices had a lengthy period of time of annual growth for half a decade. It has fluctuated over the quarter, but it's had consistent annual growth for rental prices, said Domain senior analyst Nicola Powell. That speaks to the tightening rental conditions that Canberra has seen. Dr. Powell said a rise in vacancies across houses and units has softened rental prices in the last quarter. However, I think that increase in rising vacancy is going to be short-lived in Canberra. When we look at the most recent vacancy rates, it looks to be tightening already, she said. Despite rental prices sliding over the quarter, rental conditions remain competitive as tenants compete in the third tightest capital city rental market. Over the June quarter, Canberra recorded a rental yield of 4.85% for houses a 4.7% fall from the previous quarter and a 2.7% decline from the previous year. So, I mean, they're copying a hit in the yields they're getting, but could it be that this market is more resilient well, we see it in the commercial property it is. Is that going to manifest in the property for residential? Are people lining up to jump on board to houses and units there? If there's more growth in government. As for units, Canberra had the second highest rental yield at 6% after Darwin, a 2.9% fall from the previous quarter and a 0.7% decline from the previous year. For investors, unit gross rental yields remain attractive, considering they offer the second highest of the cities as rental conditions begun to tighten again, Dr. Powell said. One Canberra resident, Claire Pritchard, noticed rental prices became more affordable and decided to take advantage of the softening market. In June, she moved away from a 3-bedroom standalone house in Nungamal to a 1-bedroom apartment in Amaru. Ms. Pritchard said she signed a 1-year lease for the 3-bedroom house in that suburb, and while landlord said the price wouldn't increase if we renewed the lease, it wasn't guaranteed. So, there you go. I mean, Canberra is a different market to other parts of the nation. To other parts, it appears so. It appears so. While the house was great for our kittens, we wanted to move to something smaller, more manageable, and central to amenities, like the tram line, she said. Okay, so she's a cat lady. I started looking for a new rental in April. Prices were the cheapest I'd seen in a long time, so I didn't waste any time. She said moving into an apartment would help her and her partner, Sean, save for a house deposit. My partner is a first-year apprentice, and saving hasn't been easy living in a house, so we decided to downsize so we could save more and eventually buy our own home in the future, she said. My partner and I are now saving $80 per week renting an apartment. So there you go. I mean, that's a smart move on their behalf. It's a smart move. That $80 a week, it may not sound like much, but it adds up. It adds up. Over a year, boom, you got thousands of dollars sitting there that you wouldn't have otherwise. On a regional level, Tuggeranong and Queanbeyan had the most affordable asking rents for houses at $520 a week. That's an affordable rent? $520 a week? Remaining unchanged from the previous quarter in Tuggeranong, while Queanbeyan unit prices dipped by 1%. So we're not seeing the same dramatic falls here as we are in Melbourne. We're definitely not seeing the same dramatic falls as we are in Melbourne. The region with the biggest change over the quarter was the inner north, with a 3.8% drop to $625 per week. Prices in the inner north remained unchanged over the year. Dr. Powell attributes the inner north's dip to an increase in rental stock. In the ACT, when you have a look across all of our areas, the inner north saw the biggest lift in advertised rentals for units and houses from March to June. The inner north was up 21.2%, so over that period there was an influx of vacant properties for rent, she said. Perhaps it was an immediate impact of the pandemic, or perhaps we've seen these short-term leases convert to long-term leases. It also is likely to be the impact of fewer students, foreign and local students, who are more likely to remain at home with their parents during the pandemic. I think there'd be a number of factors which have helped to create some excess rental supply. As for units, Greater Queanbeyan was the most affordable at $300 a week, unchanged over the quarter and the year. Overall, all regions remained stagnant from the previous quarter except for Balkanen, and the inner south, which recorded a 2.2% and 1.9% drop, respectively. So, property managing director at Independent, Hannah Gill, said while rental prices are great from an affordability perspective for tenants, the last quarter has caused uncertainty for landlords. Because we don't have as many people coming into Canberra at the moment, vacancy rates have increased slightly, she said. Although it's still relatively healthy, a lot of landlords have been concerned about securing tenants and in some instances dropping prices to get tenants in quickly. So Canberra isn't feeling it as hard as Melbourne. Melbourne, which is, well, now they've even locked down, but the international students having a big impact on Melbourne. However, Ms. Gill said June was our best month of approved tenants, while the agency was having more than 200 tenants move into properties across Canberra. At the start of the pandemic, we saw a real shift of short-term leases moving to long-term rentals, she said. But I think confidence is returning to the rental market because we're seeing a high level of demand across Canberra despite the pandemic. Before moving to Oamaru in the Gulligan region, Ms. Pritchard said she was looking for an apartment in Balcanan because of the more affordable rent prices. However, wasn't able to secure one due to the high levels of interest from properties. We applied for 7 properties before we secured one. It was quite competitive. My partner and I weren't too fussed about whether we'd be able to get into the region, and although it would be nice to live closer to the city because of work, we knew it would have been more expensive, so we opted to remain in Gungahlin. So there you go. I mean, good on them. Good on the young couple taking advantage of locking in some savings. It's encouraging to see. That's good news to see. I'm it's making me happy, guys. So people are taking advantage of this to get savings, to build up a reserve, to save for a deposit. And we'll see. I mean, this is only just the beginning of this recession. And if even Canberra, one would say the more resilient market of the capital cities, definitely the Sydney and Melbourne, if they're starting to feel it, what's it going to be like in a year's time? Well, good luck to them. Do tradies have cats? Are they meant to have dogs? Come on, mate. It's probably an electrician. That's it. Sparky. All my Sparky friends. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and want to support the content I create, there are a few ways you can. You can join us on YouTube or Patreon. You can support us via our affiliate links at Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or Kucoin. You can buy merch from HeiseSays, use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint, or support us via PayPal. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you next time.